If you're looking for an indie rock and witchcraft fever dream, then Hellbender might just be for you. Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass. I'm here to talk to you about Hellbender, which comes to Shudder on February 24, 2022. It is an indie witchcraft coming-of-age film, which it's a weird thing to say, but it actually comes together pretty well in the end. There's a lot of things I liked about it, some things I didn't like about it. So overall, my hot take is I think it's a rental. I think it's strange because it has a lot of things that are hit or miss. It has hit or miss effects. It has hit or miss dialogue. It has a hit or miss story. There's a lot of things that kind of do really well in one part and not so well in the other part. But overall, I think it's an interesting film. It feels very different from a lot of other movies that you might have seen, and also the ending comes together pretty well. So I think it's ultimately a rental. But I'm going to go into a little bit more about that. Talk to you a little about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers. If you don't want to know anything about the film, if you don't want to find out the secrets of the Hellbenders, then turn this off right now. But if you want to know more, then let's keep going. So in Hellbenders, you have this strange family that live on this big plot of land kind of out in the mountains. They've got 16-year-old Izzy, who is homeschooled, and her mother, who takes care of her, teaches her, and also is the only one that kind of interacts with the outside world. Her mother keeps Izzy at home because she's told Izzy that she is sick, and so she can't be around other people except for her mother. As you can imagine with that kind of a setup, eventually she's growing up, she's a teenager, she starts to kind of rebel and want to get out, and that leads to more questions about things in the family that are a little bit weird. And so as she's learning more about her family and their background and some of the things that make her family special, she grows and changes in more than just kind of like your normal teenage coming of age. And so the interesting thing about this film is it feels like a family affair. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of family members in this, and I think the family members are also like they're involved in music and rock, and so there's a lot of rock influences as well. Some of the things you'll see in my criticisms are there's a lot of like music video and rock video feel in this, for better or worse. And like I said, there's a lot of hit or miss things, and that's kind of one of the hit or miss things. So things I liked about this movie. The first is the concept. Like I liked the idea of a coming of age, but one that awakens like something darker in an awkward teen. Like I liked, it's not unique, but I thought it was pretty well done. Like she starts off as this like really nice, strange off kid, and then by the end she is a very, very different person. And I liked the kind of slow progression and the way that this coming of age came together, where she starts to kind of explore some of the darker aspects of her nature and her history. The second thing I really liked are some of the effects. Like the magic in this is a lot more kind of nature based. It's a lot more blood based, I guess. Like it seems like every spell requires them to like vomit up some blood, which sounds gross, but I thought it was interesting. It gave it a very more like primal and like tied to nature feel than maybe some of the other witchcraft type movies where they use like power and like light and things like that. Like this felt like very primal in the way that these spells are cast. They like take sticks and like pull out some hair and tie them together and then like vomit up some blood and mix it with like some flowers, and that it was interesting. It felt like it felt very more tied to nature than a lot of the other witchcraft movies I've seen. And the last thing I liked is the ending. I thought that the film ended pretty well. The build up to the ending is a little tough, but I thought the ending itself was pretty good. So I'm going to go into that later in the ending section that'll have a lot of spoilers. Things I did not love as much. The first is I'm going to call it the music video parts. I mean, I think you can tell that this family, I mean, they're talented. They do a really good job with the music itself, but it has this weird transition, especially at the start, where you've got this kind of like this old like colonial witchcraft scene, and then almost like instantly you cut to this like emo rock band practicing, and that is like it's a pretty abrupt shift. And then you've got the band playing for a little bit longer than I thought was necessary. Like I thought it'd be cool to like, okay, yeah, like we'll play a song for like a couple seconds and then get back into the story, but they play for a pretty long time, and the music aspect is tied in the story, but I don't really know if it's tied in that well. And it feels like there are a few scenes that have these like music video type sequences, and they do relate to things that happen in the film, but they did feel very off with the rest of the film and kind of the more, I don't know, serious movie aspects of it. Second thing I didn't love is maybe I just don't like music videos, because some of the effects did feel like they were pulled from like a music video. Like I liked the practical blood effects and the practical effects of the magic, but there were some scenes where like a person would have a dream and there would be like flashes of scenes happening, and then some scenes with like a negative exposure, and it felt abrupt. It felt a little jarring, and I think it was supposed to be, but I don't know. It felt a little bit too out there. It felt almost like I was just watching a music video in those scenes, and maybe that's because I was already kind of influenced by the early music video scene. I don't think they looked very good, and I think they were a little distracting when they happened, and it made me kind of like not. It kind of took me out of the moment when those types of effects happened. The third thing I did not love is some of the dialogue. I mean, the dialogue is hit or miss, and some of it is due to Izzy's character just being awkward. So I think it's supposed to be intentionally bad. But there are some scenes where some of the conversation just doesn't really flow very well, and some of the delivery feels off, especially in a scene that happens where Izzy meets some teenagers and they kind of hang out for a bit. Like that whole interaction just felt weird. It felt too scripted, and it felt like it was didn't feel natural. So, and that's not unique. Like there's a lot of dialogue that doesn't really feel natural in the movie. Maybe that's because it's supposed to be a supernatural movie, but it also just felt like maybe it just wasn't that well done. And the last thing I did not love is a very minor point. There was a very convenient drum set, and this relates back to the kids hanging out scene. Maybe I just didn't like that part. Like maybe there's just very specific parts I didn't like, but they're hanging out at this house that apparently they like break into every once in a while. And so they're there, and Izzy mentions that she's in a band to her friend Amber. And then later when two more people come, like one of the people like gets on a drum set and starts playing, which felt weird because it was like this brand new, beautiful drum set sitting outside of this house. Like that's really not where you would store a drum set. Maybe they brought it from like a pool house or something, but that feels like a big endeavor to like set up a drum set when you're hanging out. In any event, that person plays it and like, oh no, like Izzy, now it's your turn to try. And like she obviously does a really good job because she's a drummer in the band. But it just felt really weird to be like, oh, like here's this like perfect new drum set just chilling outside by the pool. Like, I guess we'll just have that there. And it just felt off. So speaking of things that feel off, but in a good way, let's go into the ending. Like I said, Izzy is kind of living a suppressed life, partly because her mother is trying to keep her away from things. So eventually when Izzy's hanging out with these friends, they have this very kind of like another convenient setup where Izzy is forced to drink a worm. And so I guess the idea is they're taking like a shot of tequila, and he like throws a worm in one as like a fake tequila worm, and Izzy has to drink it. Again, it felt weird. And the whole that whole dialogue felt really weird. But Izzy drinks it, she eats the worm, and like awakens her powers. And we find out later that her power, like her magic, is from like the fear of living things. And so when she ate that worm, that worm's fear fueled her abilities. And so that was her like first taste of magic. Before that, she had been purely vegetarian because her mother was like protecting her. That was her first taste of magic, and she likes it very much. Um, Later, her mom tries to like teach her some magic, but she really tries to limit her. She tries to make it so that she learns, but doesn't get too powerful. So I don't think she wants her to like taste the power that she could have to try to like protect her. So it feels very confining. I think that was actually pretty well done. Like she's teaching her magic, but it feels like she is artificially limiting Izzy, and Izzy definitely wants to go farther. So later on, a police officer comes by, and he's by the land, and they have this really quick conversation. Again, a little awkward dialogue, but it's fine. And the police officer mentions that they found like a hiker who had been mauled by an animal. And he asks like, are there any strange occurrences, any wild animals? And earlier we had seen that there were these like skeletons around the land, and Izzy and her mom was like, oh, it must be like a wild animal. But I think the implication is that the implication that we're supposed to come to is that Izzy is doing this as she's exploring her power. She's like eating more and more meat to get more and more fear to use for her powers. But she keeps that internalized. She doesn't mention, she's like, oh yeah, there must be a wild animal. And again, it's when the police officer comes around, you get the idea that maybe she's doing a lot more and going into like some darker areas by maybe eating people. So Izzy and Amber's friendship ended poorly because earlier, after Izzy had that taste of the worm, she ended up attacking Amber, and that kind of like caused Amber to run away. Rightfully so, because Izzy did attack her. So Izzy later goes to Amber to try to like make up with her, I guess. It's a really weird scene, and I think it's supposed to be weird. It feels very stalkerish, which was what we were going for. And Amber feels this too. Izzy goes to like apologize for what she did, and Amber's a little bit too creeped out by like the situation and Izzy in general. So she just tells her to like go away. But during this scene, we also find out that the homeowner who came home while the kids were all in the pool and chased them all away ended up disappearing. And she's like, I hope he didn't get mauled by an animal, because apparently that happens in the woods. Again, another inclination that Izzy is exploring the darker side of her nature. So meanwhile, Izzy's mom opens up this like secret room in the house, and it's an interesting room because like you have to like put your hand over the symbol and a key like pops out of your hand, and then you use that to open the room. She goes to open it, but it's not locked, and so she opens up the room and finds that this like dark book is missing, and it looks like maybe some spell components are also missing as well. She finds the book in Izzy's room, and so her mom uses like her witch's sight on the book to figure out what was happening. So we see the homeowner that originally chased them away, like lying on the ground, like covered in blood, and we also see Izzy covered in blood. So there we go. Izzy is giving into her dark nature. And then Izzy looks up at her mom, like using her sight, and starts talking to her, and it kind of like pulls her mom down to her, metaphorically, psychically speaking, but they kind of like have a conversation. And this is a pretty interesting scene. I really liked how this was done, because Izzy is like, oh hey, I wrote another song for the band, because she writes the songs and then her mom and her kind of perform them. It's supposed to be like a thing that they do together. And the song kind of reads like a poem, and so she told her this story. I'm not going to do it justice, but it's essentially a song that's about this like wolf who was afraid of her nature and longed to be a sheep. And she raised her cub, trying to make it be a lamb when that cub longed to be a wolf. I think you can get the symbolism, but it's a pretty good scene. Then she says like, have you met my friend Amber? She's still alive, don't worry. And you like pan over and you see like Amber lying on a table, like half devoured. And Izzy like takes a forkful of her and he goes like, bon appetit. And then that's when like the connection breaks off. I thought this was a really good scene. I thought it was really well done. I loved like the creepy nature of it. I love the poem. I love the like scene with Amber. I thought that was a really good way to kind of end it. So now back in the home, her mom kind of like breaks off the connection or is pushed out. I'm not really sure. But she hears noises down below. And so she kind of goes down to the basement of the house and is looking around, and she hears some whimpering. And then she sees this like hole in a like bench or cupboard. And so probably the wrong decision, but she goes down into this hole, and it's this like creepy looking tunnel that looks like it's almost like a hole in a body. Like I think it's supposed to be dirt, but it looks almost like flesh around it. It's a really well done scene. She goes down in here, and in this tunnel she finds Amber, and Amber is like pleads with her like, help, like I can't move, I can't get out, like help me. And then she finds Izzy. And Izzy's mom asks her like, what is this place? And Izzy says, it's my happy place. And look, like as someone who spends a lot of time in a pretty dark area, like I understand the appeal of a dark area that's all your own and that you can kind of do what you want in it. This was a little bit darker than my area. My area has a little bit more kind of RGB lighting and a setup, but I understand the appeal. But she also had like Amber there, so it wasn't really a good happy place, but it's Izzy's happy place. Her mom is like horrified and was like, no, look, like I just wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to kind of like go down the path that our family has gone down. And Izzy's like, protect me from what? Like protect me from people that believe in good and evil? Like if they want to believe in hell, like I'll give them hell. And that's kind of, that's the penultimate line. Like the film is Hellbenders. The Izzy and her mom are known as Hellbenders. It was just the name of like the name, the name that was given to her witches and kind of like how they got their power. They got it from like using life and using fear, and so they like bent hell to give them power, I guess. So Izzy says also that like essentially it's like hypocritical because she says like I've seen your dreams, mom. I know what you did, and her mom did some pretty bad things when she was younger. Her mom is justified like only did what I was taught because her mom was more on the dark side and like eventually did this horrible thing that killed like a village, including some kids. And so she kind of swore off her powers from that. And that's kind of where her mom also was horrified and like swore off her powers as well. But Izzy's essentially like, you didn't give me that choice. Like you kind of made that choice for me. So Izzy also implies she knows how Hellbenders die. And apparently it's like something to do with being consumed by your child. Um, and she then tries to like get her mom to like come out. It's a very like Emperor and Luke scene, like Luke trying to get like Luke's dark side out. Like she's trying to get her mom's dark side to come out. Eventually, like very briefly, her mom's like Hellbender face comes out, like it turns dark, like her teeth become sharper, but only for a brief moment. And Izzy is happy that like her mom has awakened this, but then I think she's a little sad that her mom went right back into her lamb form. And so Izzy's like, I'll show you true power. And she like pulls her mom into this like burning world, like essentially there's like fire all around her. It looks, it's probably hell, would be my guess, but she pulls her in and then she like snarls her hellbender face, snaps her fingers, and everything becomes dark. And so her mom is, and you only see her mom. Her mom is like terrified and is whimpering, and she begs her like not to kill her, like she's not ready not to kill her. And I love this scene because then Izzy like kind of pops in the weird like Izzy way, and she's like, oh, she's not gonna kill her, she's not gonna eat her, because she's not ready to have a little hellbender, and she loves her. And that's like that's it, she choice done. And then she says, hey, I'm going to town, do you need anything? And her mom is like still kind of whimpering, and she's like, bass strings. And she's like, okay, you got it, and leaves. And this is such a great kind of ending because it's a reversal. At the start, her mom mentioned like, hey, I'm going to town, do you need anything? And I think Izzy said like black, like a black pencil, like a black eye makeup, and something else, I think drumsticks. And so now at the end of the film, Izzy has now taken on that like matriarch dominant persona, and is going to town while her mom has to stay here. I assume Izzy will kind of like lock her in this dungeon space, but we don't know. Like maybe Izzy will just kind of like let them be. But in any event, the movie fades, and that's Hellbenders. Then you get some really good like rock music at the end. So overall, like I think it was a little bit of a mixed bag. Like I said, I liked the ending, I liked the concept, I liked a lot of things that it did. Just some of the things felt, I don't know, a little bit too off, like a little too hit or miss. But I definitely think you should check it out. It's an interesting film, and it's coming to Shudder on February 24th, 2022. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.